Okay, part two. For whatever reason, the YouTube doesn't, gets mad when you try to upload anything more than 15, 20 minutes. So I was right on the edge. Okay, so let me continue. I left you on a cliffhanger here. This woman thoroughly identifying with the woman she imagines she's seeing in the wallpaper. Either that or she's just become demon possessed. This is what I meant by the question that I had you all respond to. Does the narrator experience a victory? And at least in a very ironic, darkly ironic, maybe funny way, she's experiencing a victory here. For the first time, she seems happy and content, right? It is so pleasant to be out in this great room and creep around as I please. I don't want to go outside. I won't, even if Jenny asks me to. From outside, you have to creep on the ground, and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor. All right, so you get a special bonus here. You get to see my interpretation of what creeping is. Okay, as near as I can tell, this is what creeping is. Okay, so she's lying on the floor like this, okay? And then what it's describing is that her shoulder is rubbing up against the wall, okay? And then leaving a groove in the wall because she keeps pushing herself around and round the floor. So she's rubbing against the wall. So creeping, okay, this is me creeping, all right, and I'm about to bang my head on the cabinet there. But yeah, you get the idea. I think it would work better on a smoother wooden floor. Yeah, and there's that Civil War saber again. Okay, so that's creeping. So she's happy as a pig in slop, right? She can just creep around all she wants now. And that's all she ever wanted to do. Okay? So, yeah, tied up, creeping around on the floor. And yes, I just got a text from my neighbor as I was talking. My next door neighbor, I'm afraid she can hear what I'm doing. So, she's going to call the cops here, and the men in the white suits are about to come get me. I'm pretty confident about that, okay? All right, so creeping on the floor. All right, so here she's saying, but here I can creep smoothly on the floor, etc., right? So I cannot lose my way. Why? There's John at the door. So she's really happy here, and John's knocking on the door, and she felt so restricted by him. Every time he'd say something, she'd clam up and get restricted, right? And so look at the way she responds to him. This is great. And it's definitely funny. And I think Gilman intends it. Okay. It is no use, young man. You can't open it. So calling him young man, right? Y'all were commenting before on how John's husband is saying, oh, my silly little goose, my sweet little girl. All these condescending kinds of, terms of affection, right? Now she's kind of turning the table. What is it, young man? So this is what I mean. Who's in charge now? Okay? She's happy and she's in control. You see what I'm getting at? Okay. Dear John, said I in the gentlest voice, the key is down by the front steps under a plantain leaf. Okay, so she's calm and composed and whatever. That silenced him for a few moments. Then he said very quietly, indeed, barely suppressed anxiety and excitement, right? Open the door, my darling. I can't, said I. The key is down by the front door under a plantain leaf. So she's calm and cool and collected. He can't grasp basic, clear and accurate instructions. Okay. Then I said it again, several times, very gently and slowly, and said it so often that he had to go and see. He got it, of course, and came in. He stopped short by the door. And so he's freaking out, right? "What is the matter?" he cried. "For God's sake, what are you doing?" I kept on creeping just the same. Okay, I think I need to, yeah, all right. I stood up too soon. I need to keep creeping. All right, so I kept creeping just the same. But I looked at him over my shoulder. "I've got out at last," said I, "in spite of you and Jane. And I've pulled off most of the paper so you can't put me back." Now, why should that man have fainted? But he did, right across my path. So she's creeping along on the floor, and here's John, fainted right behind her. And so she just creeps right over him, just creeps right over his fainted body, right? So who's the one in control? I ask you from the floor of my living room, right? Who's the one who seems to have lost it? Okay? So in a very ironic way, it would appear to be a victory for the narrator here. She has finally overthrown this patriarchal authority. So she had to creep over him every time. Okay, but then of course that just does raise the question, exactly how does the irony work? And it goes something like this, that in order for a woman to achieve any kind of semblance of control or autonomy or something, she has to descend thoroughly into madness. Thorough descent into madness is the only place a woman's really going to be well. Okay? So that, of course, is a very ironic statement. Madness equals wellness and wholeness and autonomy. So this is, using this humor, this terrible dark irony, is Gilman's way of trying to say, this is precisely how bad patriarchal oppression of women can be. That the only way out is madness. Okay? So, as a result of this dark comedy, then, she is advancing a truly powerful, powerful message about the condition of women. Okay, I hope that makes sense and is clear enough. Okay, let's see. So what have we got next here? Okay. All right, yeah, and a lot of you were commenting on this, whether or not this is a ghost story, whether or not it's a story about descent into madness. Jane is the narrator, and I was really impressed. A lot of you just came right out and identified that. Jane seems to be the narrator, and Jane is also the conforming part of her identity, and you all commented on this very nicely. She's the one who, when her husband says, "Oh, you need to stand on your head and run around in circles," or whatever, and she's like, "Okay, dear, yes, dear, whatever you say. You're the doctor and you're my husband, whatever you say." So in other words, Jane is the one who is internalizing. She's buying into these power structures without questioning them. And therefore, she's internalizing this toxic ideology. And as Jane internalizes that toxic ideology, she descends into madness or spirit possession, your choice. Okay, so you see this conforming self of Jane. This is over on, page numbers that don't mean anything to you, but it's about 6 pages in. You see this conforming self. This is right after that section I was reading when it seems like she's seeing a ghost. It is so hard to talk to John about my case because he is so wise and because he loves me. So again, someone who's accepting all his nonsense uncritically. That's Jane. Dr. Phil would say she doesn't have boundaries. Jane needs boundaries, okay? She doesn't have them now. She believes all this crap and swallows it whole. Skip down a few lines. What is it, little girl? You see what I mean? He calls her little girl, so when she gets to call him young man, right, she's turning the tables. See what I mean? Okay. What is it, little girl, he said. Don't go walking about like that. You'll get cold. I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him I really was not gaining here, and that I wished he would take me away. Why, darling, said he, our lease will be up in 3 weeks. I can't see how to leave before. I am a doctor, dear. Okay, what do we talk about now, right? Mansplaining. Her own mental and physical condition is being mansplained, right? I'm a doctor, right? See, okay? See my diplomas, okay? I'm a doctor, right? I know better than you do about your own body, okay? They didn't have the term mansplaining back then, but this is mansplaining, okay? In a terrible way. Okay, where was I? Yeah. So he's insisting she's getting better when she herself knows she's not. And he doesn't listen to her because he really believes he knows better. Okay, so keep going. Really, I feel much easier about you. Bless her little heart, said he with a big hug. She shall be as sick as she pleases. I'm picturing patting her on the head or something. But now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep and talk about it in the morning. He doesn't listen to a word she says, all right? Really, dear, you are better. And now watch this. This is even more telling. Better in body, perhaps, I began, and stopped short, for he sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look. That is a good, stern, reproachful look, right? That I could not say another word, okay? So he has Jane under complete control, right? In a way that is not doing Jane a bit of good. So of course I said no more on the score. So this is Jane being the conforming self. Oh, I'll be a good little wife and I won't say anything. I don't want to trouble him. And we went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep first, but I wasn't, and lay there for hours trying to decide whether the front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separately. Wow. So he doesn't listen, so she has no choice but to retreat into mental illness. Okay? All right. Okay, and then someone pointed out, I think it was Joseph, about Jane sounds a little bit like Jane Doe. And I think that's right on the money. And then John, so they're named Jane and John. Okay, John Doe, Jane Doe. So a kind of tag of anonymity, right, as you all know. And so I think this is Gilman's way of saying, yeah, I'm talking about me and what I went through in my marriage before I got divorced, which she did, by the way. Gilman divorced that man. I'm talking about me, but she's confident that she can generalize her experience. That what she's describing is any marriage. This is, John and Jane Q. Public or whatever, John and Jane Doe, Yeah, so she feels that she's speaking to, she's universalizing the truth of her story, in other words. So it's subtle, but it's very powerful. Okay, all right, so where did I leave off? Okay, so how are we doing here? Okay, yeah, I have time to comment on this, but whether this is a story about mental illness or a story about demon possession, either way, as I said, Gilman is drawing on conventions of the Gothic. And we think about Gothic writers as being primarily men, like Poe or, William Faulkner or what have you, but women were writing the Gothic also. So there's one critic, a woman named Kate Ferguson Ellis, and she wrote a book called The Contested Castle. And this is what she said about women writing in the Gothic, okay? She says that for women, Gothic literature can be a site of resistance to ideological positions manufactured by the upper and middle classes, which made home a place of danger and imprisonment. So the idea of the haunted house, all right? Gothic convention from, Castle of Otranto, first Gothic text written in the 1700s, all the way up to Scooby-Doo, right? You have a haunted house. What Ellis is saying is that women will use this Gothic convention of the haunted house to say that, we women don't believe in the domestic ideal. You men are trying to tell we women that we should be happy in the home. We should be happy confined here, and we're safe and comfortable and, feel perfectly useful and everything else, right? And the haunted house turns that domestic ideal on its head. You have Gilman here saying the home that the narrator Jane is stuck in is anything but a sanctuary, anything but a place of love and nurture. Home is hell. Home is hell. And this is exactly why women were making use of Gothic conventions, because by way of the Gothic, women could say just that. Don't try to force this domestic crap on us. Home is hell. Get that? Okay, does that make sense? So Gilman making use of the Gothic is an incredibly subversive move on her part. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Okay. Yeah, so that's enough on that point. Okay, let that be the end of part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, where we will dig into the story a little bit more. So part 3 will be next. Okay.